The communication channels formula is what's going to be discussed in this video. The formula is n times n minus 1 divided by 2. So n times n minus 1 divided by 2 will give you the number of communication channels. Now, n is the number of people. So, for example, 5 people. Now, when we think about this, there's a number of ways that PMI could potentially try to validate that you understand what's going on here on the test. So we're going to walk through a number of those. So starting out with, it's not out of line to think that it would be good to know how many people, if you know how many people are on a project, how many channels there are. So for example, 7 people on the project, how many communication channels? So in other words, a communication channel is how anybody can talk to anybody, or communicate with anybody. So 7 times 7 minus 1 divided by 2 is 7 times 6 divided by 2, and that's 42 divided by 2 is 21 channels. And so if there were 7 people on the project, you would have 21 communication channels. Now feel free to pause this, write some numbers out, work it yourself if you want, but this is the first stage of what you could be asked. Now from there, I could say 2.5 people are added to the 7 people on the project. What's the new total number of channels? Now this is a little bit of a trick because they're not really half a person. Even if it's a part-time person, they're still a full person. So you would round up to 3. So 3 people are added to the 7-person project. That gets you 10 people on the project. So 10 times 10 minus 1, that gets you 10 times 9 is 90 divided by 2. So 90 divided by 2 gets you 45 communication channels. Now that said, the next thing they could ask, how many channels were added when the 2.5 people joined the project? Technically, this is your most complicated calculation because you have to do the most work. But essentially, you're doing the first 2 things we covered in this video, and then you're subtracting the difference. So when we added 2.5 people to the 7, that gave us 45 total channels between people that could interact with each other. And then originally we had 21 channels, so the difference between those 2 is 24 channels. So by adding those 2.5 people to the team of 7, we added 24 channels. Now, another way that you could be tricked up or tripped up if you're not careful is forgetting to pay attention to the project manager. And don't overcomplicate this. I see this so many times in my public classes. People try they read too much into the English. And so by the time a question in this area would be translated to other languages, don't overcomplicate it. If it says there's X people on the project, X is your number of people. If it says the project manager has a team of X, or the PM and the team are, X people, read it for what it is. So for example, if I say the project manager has a team of 4 people, then 5 would be your basis to start the calculation because you have the 4 people and the project manager. So you see 5 times 4 divided by 2 gets me 10 channels, versus if I forget the PM, it's 4 times 3 divided by 2, that gets me 6 channels. And I could all but guarantee if 10 is the right answer, 6 is going to be one of the answers that would show up. So if you calculate it incorrectly, you could still come up with the number. Just like the previous situation we were looking at in this video, I might ask you that last question, like how many channels were added to the project with those 3 people being added. But the first number you're going to calculate on the way. The second number you're going to calculate on the way. Then the third number you're going to get by subtracting the first 2 numbers. So more than likely those first 2 numbers would be 2 of your 4 answers. Just don't bite on it unless that's specifically what you're being asked.